All right, and with that, I'd like to introduce our presenter for today. We have the privilege of hearing from Results Positive founder and senior solutions architect, Mr. John Furner, a more than 20-year veteran of the IT service industry, who'll be reviewing some of the latest ServiceNow SPM advancements in capacity planning, resource allocation, and reporting capabilities in their new workspaces. And with that, we'll go ahead and turn the time over to John.
Thanks so much, Sean, and welcome everyone to our webinar today. We're excited to share with you the new resource management capabilities. As we go through the capabilities here, I'm going to try to highlight it for customers and organizations that haven't used the classic resource management, but also try to highlight those of you that have used the classic resource management, how it's different here with the new resource management solution. So thanks again for everyone attending today. At the end, we'll be talking about critical success factors for resource management, some common implementation roadmaps that we see, and actually show you some of those roadmaps as well. So that's some of the stuff we'll do at the end of our session today. So if I jump in here first, just kind of an overview. I'm sure all of you on the call today understand the whole idea of balancing supply and demand, or capacity and availability and demand. That's really what we're trying to accomplish here with resource management. And so we have X number of resources or employees for different teams, roles or skills. And then we have demands coming in. That can be projects, that could obviously be demands themselves, that could be actual epics. And so we need to have a process in place, have governance in place to make sure that we can look at those demands and requests, see what our capacity is, when does our capacity free up, and make those critical prioritization and approval decisions. And so it's really critical to make sure that your resource planning is part of your overall governance process for approving projects, as an example. Next here, just to kind of highlight the framework here. This is for the new resource management framework. So in terms of resources, the new framework's using an employee profile that leverages the kind of classic user or resource role, the resource management schedule, and then the overall capacities generated at the resource level, and then that's been used to calculate, say, your overall group-based capacity, or your role-based capacity, or your skill-based capacity. So the key kind of new thing here is an employee profile for those that have been using the classic resource management. Also, the new framework's kind of based upon attributes, similar to the old model, where you've got groups, roles, and skills. And here, specifically called primary group, primary role, primary skill. And that's what you see on the employee profile. And so as denoted here with the term, you need to make sure there's just one primary resource group, one primary role, one primary skill for that employee to be used and to roll up here into your different capacities, such as by group or by role. And so that kind of gives you your overall capacity plan by setting up that foundation. And then in terms of demands for your resources, instead of being resource plans in the classic, now it's called a resource assignments. Actually, it's a new entity that you use for resource assignments. It's meant to simplify the overall process, include more automation, but there's still resource plans behind the scenes, but it's helped to, as I mentioned, streamline the process there. So those of you that have been using the classic view, going forward, you'd create resource assignments, i.e. as your resource plans, and then you can do that at the group role level as before. You can do it now as skill, or you can do it here for a specific resource. And those are associated to your planning items, i.e. Traditionally your demand request, that project proposal, or the actual project itself, or also now with the epics as well. So that's kind of the key component here. It moves to an attribute-based planning model, introduces the employee profile, and introduces resource assignments versus the old resource plans. And those of you that are familiar with the operational resource plans from the classic model, now you have the operational resource assignments moving forward. So that's kind of an introduction here into the new framework. And so within the strategic planning workspace or portfolio planning workspace, the capacity is generated currently by using this manage resource capacity page. And so this is where you get to come in and select a specific time frame, select a specific attribute here. It could be group, role, or skill, and most likely we see group being used there. You can view the capacity, and then you want to generate the capacity. And so this will go look at all of your different employees in the employee profile that have their primary group as the specific group here, such as HR process team, and then it will then calculate the overall capacity for that time frame based upon the number of employees, including those employee profiles. So my understanding is going forward in future releases that they'll make that more of an automated scheduled job, but that's how you go in and actually set and calculate the capacity for each resource attribute. In this case, looking at it from a group perspective. So one of the other key things we kind of alluded to in resource management is creating these new resource assignments, i.e. The old resource plans. So if I have a new demand project proposal, right, I want to estimate what I need from a resource perspective, and that's where I'd come in and create a new resource assignment. And so basically I can create that new resource assignment here. And depending on how I set up that resource assignment, when I set that up, it could then come in here into a pending state here. What we typically recommend, they have an assignment type. We recommend this for demands, especially for customers that are using the classic resource management. Do the type of user and then just put in the group. Don't put in a resource, and then put in the level of effort. 1 FTE, 2 FTEs, partial FTE, whatever's needed. At that point, what it'll do is it'll then create your resource assignment. It actually then is going to auto allocate that, almost like a soft booking for that particular group. But it's going to do it based upon that level of effort. And so that way you can kind of create that like overall estimate. However, if you were to do the group type and you selected a group, what would happen when you created that resource assignment, it would actually move to the pending state, but it would actually create and allocate for all members of that group. So even though you're in the demand process, it would do that for all members. And so you'd want to use this user type, as I mentioned before, if you're looking for more of a just an estimate. And that's one of the things here. And the new plan is to doing a lot of the different automation. And so whether you're in a project or a demand, it'll do that same. So if you type in your overall group there, and you put in your resource, say on a project side, it'll automatically allocate and put it into pending state. And so that's how that works. Then from there, you could have the resource manager move that to approved state as an example. But basically when it's in pending state, it has been auto allocated to that specific resource as an example. If it was automatically allocated to a group as an example, then typically it's going to be in your unassigned. So it hasn't really assigned it to a specific resource yet, even though it's quote unquote been soft booked or allocated to the group. So just as an overall FYI. So that's basically a high level of how the overall process works here in terms of the new resource assignments with your demands and projects. I have a couple of slides here, and these are actually some of our training slides that we assist with customers here. But basically, here's highlighting how you would come in and create a resource assignment. doing that assignment type of user that I mentioned before so that you can create kind of more of that estimate. And so in this case, we're looking at a demand within the strategic planning workspace. Here again, you could do a demand in the classic view. And I would just come over here to my resource assignments related list. And then from there, I come in here and click on new. Here, then I would fill out and select, say, the group. Make sure that I have the assigned user, this assignment type as a user. Put in the level of effort here that I want to have. I can do it by hours or FTEs or percentage. And there, I need to put in my date time frame. And then from there, I can hit save and it'll create that overall resource assignment. And so once I've created that overall resource assignment, as we can see here, it's then going to actually create that allocation for me. And so it's going to do that immediately after I'm submitted that resource assignment. So I can come over here, I can look at that resource assignment tab here. And then at that point, I can see, you'll see here, actually see a resource plan. So like I mentioned before, the resource plans are still being used. And we can see here it's related to the actual demand itself. And then I can see the overall, in this case, the overall confirmed allocated hours. And we know that this is not tied to a resource. It's just to that particular group. And so it's going to highlight how just by creating that resource assignment, it automatically did the allocations. Now, if we had actually selected a resource there, then it would list here the resource that had been assigned. As I mentioned before, if we had used the assignment type of group and created the resource assignment, then what we would see here, we'd see all of the resources a part of that group. They would all be automatically allocated and assigned here to that resource assignment. So that's basically how the resource assignment works. Here's an example here of looking at if we were to do the group-based resource assignment. Since this is kind of the new feature, I thought this is important to show. So here, same type of starting place here would come over to the resource assignment tab. We would select the assignment type of group. We put in the group here. When you put in the group and the group type, the system will automatically then kind of calculate the number of members of your group. Once you do that, click on save. It's then going to allocate to all members of your group. So the results of that then would be here we would have the overall details tab, so the information that we just submitted. Then next here we can see the resource allocation, so it's going to give us that resource plan that's been allocated. We can see here that we have a lot of hours, 37,000 hours based on that group having 25 resources. We can see here that we've created 25 assignments. And if we go look at that tab, then we would see all the individual resources here, and we could see their allocations and the start date there. We'll then see here that pending status that we mentioned before. And so they have been allocated fully. It's just in that pending status. And then as part of your process, you can have resource managers change that to an approved state, but not required. So that's kind of the process there from resource assignments with your demands. Next here, as I mentioned, a lot of this is to help simplify the process. And so there's a lot of synergies been created here in the new resource management capabilities, especially when it comes to projects. And so now it allows you to make these resource assignments at multiple levels. So you could do it at the project level, the phase level, or the task level. We typically recommend at the project level or the phase level. So the project level, when you do that, right, you're going to allocate someone for the whole entire duration of the project. So you might not want to do everyone at the project level. And then phase level, right, you might have certain resources coming in for a specific phase of the project. So you can quickly do that assignment there from a phase perspective, or you could get very granular down to the task level. Obviously, you get down to that level, then you've just giving yourself more work to do, if you will. The other nice thing here is that because of this, I would say, consolidation here, is that you don't necessarily need to now assign people to tasks like you did in the old classic resource management and assign them and allocate them to a resource plan. Now, when you come in and you do a resource assignment, it kind of does both those actions in one. So that really helps streamline the process. So basically what happens here, and I'll show you in a couple of slides, the project managers can create a resource assignment, and that resource will then be automatically allocated. They can view the capacity heat map, and then the allocation of those resources, if you want, could be prevented from the PM and only allow it for resource managers. It just requires a little bit of configuration in terms of access rights. So that can be set up. So if you see over here, we've got the new project workspace. We have our overall task listed here. By selecting on a task, a phase, or the project, then you would see all the different resources down below here that have been basically allocated to that. And then you'll also see this very nice heat map. So as a PM or someone that's looking at the project, they can see who's assigned, but they could then see going in the future, this resource is going to be over allocated. So they're going to want to address that in advance. Also, they can see others that are have availability, so they wouldn't have any resource constraints to work on the project. So it gives you some great visibility here within the basically the planning page here of the project. You could go into the project details and see the listing of resource assignments like we showed in the other view, but you wouldn't see the heat map. So we recommend customers using the planning section here in the project workspace. So here's kind of the steps that you would do there. You would go into your planning page. You would come over here and select that you want to view resource plans. And then what you can do down here is you can say add resources, because when you select down here, it's going to show you this pane below. And then what you do is you select the specific level. So you select the first row for the project, you select a specific phase to do a phase-based resource assignment, or you can go down to the task level. So once you've selected that level, you can click here on add resource. It's going to then provide you with this basically spreadsheet site style of entry. And at this point, then you can actually just select the resource and select the effort with that, confirm your dates, and then just toggle off that. And it's basically going to make that request. It's going to do that allocation. It's going to then update and show you the heat map of that person's availability over here. And it's going to move that state over to pending. Now that's out of the box, the way that works. So it allows a PM to do that. If you want to prevent a PM from actually doing that assignment and allocation, since it happens in one action, then you can set up some access rights so that only resource manager can fill in the resource name here. So you can do that as well. Also, you can see here that we have this previous resource assignment. It's only done at the project level. No resource has been assigned yet. We're just saying, hey, we have an estimate here of this particular group for this amount of hours. So that's a great example of when you did your upfront planning in a demand and that resource assignment moved over to the project. And typically in a demand, right, you typically don't have that assigned to a resource. So that would be an example of one coming across from a demand. And then when the timing is right, you could double click here into that resource, select the resource, update the level of effort there, and then it would do that auto assignment and allocation. Here we're just highlighting how you can then go in later if you need to and make changes. So you can always go in and edit and update an overall resource assignment. In this case, we're updating the one that came across from the demand. And then here you can also edit the resource assignment. It will allow you, based upon rights, to be able to delete the row or delete that resource assignment. So that's also available. And then you get to choose whether or not you want to see the heat map. I strongly recommend the heat map, and that's where it shows you the date range here that covers the actual resource assignment and gives you that red and green heat map. So that's how the the project workspace is used, how a PM can go in and manage those resource assignments, right? So at the different levels of your planning task, so it's doing those two functions now in one, assigning it to the project or project task, as well as to the new resource assignment. And let me just go in and kind of show that briefly here to you in the system. So I'm here now into a project here in the new project workspace. And we can see here, I'm clicked here on this particular row. So that's where I have my resource assignments here. I could select here on a different phase, and we can see here that I don't have any resources at that phase level. I do have a specific development item here, kind of more at the task level, and I can see that I have a person that's been allocated here. It's in that pending state. As we mentioned, that's the automated state. Obviously, a manager could come in here and approve that. So that's part of your process. But then I can then see here the capacity of that resource. So in this case, I don't have any issues there. But I can come back up here and see all of the resources that have been allocated there at the project level. And we can see here, right, if I wanted to turn off that heat map, I can, or I can keep that heat map in that case. So it's really simple, as we kind of showed before. I can just come in here and say add resource. It gives me this other row that I want to enter in. So if there's a resource that I want to add here, so I can add a resource, I can identify, how much time I need with that resource. That's basically all I need to do. As I tabbed across from that, you saw that it took that person, it took what group they're a part of, what their primary role, primary group is. It then also, after it did that allocation, it then shows me the overall heat map here, the availability and capacity of that particular resource. So very simple, simplifies the process. I highly recommending using the planning page here to do those resource assignments. As we talked about before, I could edit the row if I wanted to, make changes and updates to that. I could delete the row. So it allows you that flexibility as well. So that's kind of the core there I wanted to show. I'll now go over here and back into the presentation. So another key component is doing your capacity planning as part of your portfolio plans, assuming that some of you are using the strategic planning workspace or the portfolio planning workspace. As we mentioned, it's constraint-based. And so basically you would first come in here and look at your resource criteria, select the different constraints that you want to use, the criteria, that you want to use. So in this case, if I want to select specific teams, I can select specific teams in there that I know that are working in this portfolio. I can then save that change. So at that point then, when I toggle over to this capacity planning tab, I will then see all the different criteria, whether it be group-based or role-based. I'll see that all roll up here, and I'll have my overall heat map, and it'll let me know if I have available capacity or not. So great way to kind of see, do we have the capacity to deliver on our prioritized roadmap? So, and then additionally down below, I can see the planning items, and I can see their duration. And so I can easily start to see here that I've got 3 of these planning items is really driving a lot of my over allocation of resources here potentially in this time frame. And so I definitely then need to look at adjusting those or getting other groups involved to be able to execute the overall roadmap. But great visibility there. So here's kind of looking at a little more detail. So once you're in that page here, right, you can filter things down further. You can see here that we're selecting on groups. You can decide if you want it to be FTE or hours, or I think you can also do the percentage utilization. So you can do that as well. You can click here into a specific cell. It's going to let you know the capacity, what the overall demand is, if you will, and then what the net availability is. And that coincides with the coloring scheme. So you can also then select on a specific group here. You can then see a listing of all the different projects or demands that are the planning items associated with that particular group. And you can see the level of effort associated with each one of those items. And then you can still see at that group level what the overall net availability is. So you can see that as well. Next here, we're highlighting once you do a drop down with a particular team, you can actually see some other valuable information. So in this case, we're going to see some estimates outside the portfolio or outside of our estimates. So there's two options there. So you have filtered out resource assignments. So you'd see basically items in your prioritization backlog that haven't been prioritized. So they're filtered out. They're still listed here to kind of show you that if you were to prioritize all of those, that would impact your overall availability. Also, then here you can look at those that are outside of your portfolio. So they wouldn't be listed in your prioritization list of planning items, but it would let you know that if you were to accept all the work that's supporting other portfolios, it's going to let you know what that demand is, as well as in what your net availability is there as well. So that's a really powerful tool. That's one of the, I would say, one of the most valuable tools here in the new resource management capabilities. And so you can get that visibility. I can get confidence now that I can actually meet the roadmap that we've agreed to. Here again, that helps with the governance process you need to establish for prioritization and approval based upon resource availability. There's also the resource management workspace. So think of this as the tool for resource managers. This is the newer version of, say, the resource allocation workbench for those customers using the classic view. So here we've got the new resource management workspace. Now, what's nice here is you have a lot more flexibility on what you can search and include here. So it's not just looking at your different groups as an example here. So a lot of different flexibility to filtering and creating a specific card similar to the resource allocation workbench. But then here we can come in and we can look at resources. So it's kind of resource based. We can then see all the different types of work that they're working on here, such as project tasks or epics. So we can see that. Got some more information about whoever the owner of that particular item is. So that's very nice to have there. And then we got the overall heat map here as well. So you basically, here in creating these resource cards that I was just showing you, you can come in and use your filters to filter and select exactly what you're looking to manage. So a lot of flexibility there and being able to drill into team or specific people to look at their overall capacity. We'll also highlight here some of the other capabilities here in Resource Management Workspace, such as allocating and doing approvals. So here we can, once we're in this over here, we can actually use the overall selection here around our resource assignments, and we can review a lot of the unassigned tasks. And then we can look at making some of those allocation and approved decisions for those unassigned tasks. So these would be those tasks that were created that we showed earlier, that resource assignment moved from the demand to the project that was kept in unassigned state. So those would show up here based upon your filter criteria for your particular page. And then from there, you can review that and make decisions. So as we're highlighting here, this is just kind of showing you how you can further filter down the different items coming in. So if you wanted to filter down to a specific portfolio as an example, you can filter down. And then from there, you can come in and do your allocations. So basically, you'd select on a specific row, click on assign user. Then you assign select the user there, and you can assign that user to that particular resource assignment. And so when we do that, right, it automatically then allocates them to that work. You can reassign. So some of the examples of the classic view where you can, reassign a new user or replace a user. So you have those capabilities here in the new resource management workspace. There are, I don't have time to go through all the details here, just there are some details here that are important to keep in mind as you're making these decisions. And then you could look at making some unassignments. There are some limitations there. Say, for example, if you already got actual hours in there, right, you want to keep those actual hours, so it prevents you from basically unassign someone for that particular time period, as an example. So some good safety checks there for you as well. And then a nice capability here, you can export the board here to Excel if you'd like. Here again, you've got it all in one system, so don't necessarily need that, but a lot of times people want to do some more detailed analysis, so you could support that export into Excel. So let me go back here into the system and show you a few things here. So if we come back over here to the strategic planning workspace, similar to what I was showing in some of the slides before. And so those of you that aren't familiar with it, as you have your backlog here in your portfolio plan, and a portfolio plan is really a container. So it can be a container of, planning items for a specific portfolio, multiple portfolios, a department, right? It could be for a product. So you get to kind of select your lenses and create your overall container. And then in the prioritization tab, here's basically your backlog of items where you can rank them from 1 to N. And then you get to kind of manage these, kind of think of this as part of your governance process. And once you move them to prioritize means that you went through that governance process, you've agreed that they are approved to be included on the roadmap. And then only the prioritized items will be showing up here on the roadmap. I know it's a little aside from resource management, but the roadmap's very powerful here. One of the most powerful things I feel here is the ability to see overall dependencies. So you can see that there's two modes here. One is your overall planning mode, and you could actually change the dates. Here again, if you do that, you need to communicate with those that are managing the planning items. The system actually won't update the true plan dates for those items, but it will update the approved dates. Or I can look at it here in my tracking mode here. So then I can see, the health. I can see the % complete as an example. And users can pick and choose what they want to include on those bars. So how I want to group it. In this case, I'm grouping it by primary goal. I could do it by department if I wanted. In this case, I'm all having the same color. Maybe I wanted to change color based upon the type of planning item it is. And so in that case here, we can see the different colors here. So I've got some projects and some epics in here. So it kind of shows that information here for me. Also, it's nice here. I can click on this and it just does a quick little pop-up. So I can see just a little bit of information. I can click here to see the full information. I can click here to go into the actual project workspace itself on the execution side. So I can click into that overall link as well. So that's really nice. And so once we've went through this backlog process, we've done prioritization, we have our roadmap, then we can look at, okay, can we actually deliver on that roadmap? And so then we can see here that no, we can't. We've got some big constraints here. Looking at those, so we could start to understand what's going on with those constraints. We can see here we have one project that's requiring 10, another project requiring 10 resources, 4 projects, 5 projects requiring 10 resources. So that's where we're definitely coming into a crunch here. So there's going to have to be some more governance and prioritization. We can see here estimate outside of the portfolio. So there's some work and resource assignments outside of this portfolio. So it's just giving us a view of that work as well, as we're looking at everything associated to this particular portfolio plan and overall roadmap. And then down below, like we said here, we can see the planning items, the schedule. We've got some color coding here. You can see here as I hover over one, it's going to show that timeline up above in purple, so I can see that. Now, the system does allow you to change these, to move them along. What it does, it actually changes the resource assignment start dates, not the core demand or project start dates. So you can do that, but you need to understand the nuances. Also, we recommend if you do this, only really do it on demands. On projects, there's so many other items that have to be updated that it'll take quite some time for the system to come back and allow you to start entering again. So if you do want to use this, which is a great way of kind of doing some sensitivity analysis, and you can move it out, right? And that would free up, reduce some of your resource constraints here. Also, just as a future item, they've recently released the scenario comparison. However, the first release is all about looking at what's in your selected portfolio, how does it align to goals and objectives. But our understanding is in the next couple releases, then they'll be adding in the resource management function as well as the financial side of that. And so once they have it there, right, that'll be a great opportunity to select and unselect different initiatives and see how that impacts your overall resource capacity. So that's a new capability that just came out. So that gives us kind of a view there. And so now I'm going to go back here into the presentation. So now I want to talk a little about implementation best practices. I know we've kind of went through a lot, but hopefully going through some of this details helps you understand the solution. Now, as you might have attended some of our other webinars, definitely a phased approach is key for SPM, definitely key for resource management. I would see the organizations are full in on resource management. There's probably potentially a large percentage that try to do just the end-to-end. But resource management is all about organizational change. So it's really not about the tool. Yes, the tool has its certain capabilities, but it's really an organizational change effort for the organization. As a result of that, we wanted to kind of highlight some of the implementation keys to success. So the first one I have here is commitment. Think of that as commitment and capacity. Resource managers must commit, and that means that they must commit their capacity and time to spend on planning and allocating resources. Same thing with project managers. They must communicate. They're probably already doing that today without a tool, but they must communicate project resource assignment plans with the resource managers. So that commitment level needs to be there. I would tell you resource management is all about organizational change. And so a lot of times you're going to get pushback in the organization, and that's natural for them to push back. But that's why you need to have top-down leadership support, have their commitment, their reinforcement. That's a key one here that I didn't include here on the commitment side, because you're going to get pushback and you're going to have to continually kind of push back against that. Communication is really, really key. So resource management is all about communication. You're probably doing it today without a tool. Just because you have a tool, you're going to have a lot of visibility. You're going to have a lot more information. However, you're still going to have that communication, right? Project managers need to communicate. If resource managers are going to allow them to do the assignments, that they're going to have to communicate to the resource manager that, hey, I'm going to assign John to this particular project. Is that okay? So you still need to maintain that communication. Same thing, resource managers need to communicate with project managers, right? They might be not allocating who the project managers requested, They might be assigning, unallocating resources, making adjustments. So those communications should occur versus just assuming someone would see that in the system. Governance is key here. So as part of that project proposal or demand project approvals, right, that now needs to be based upon resource capacity, not only based on your business case and your financials, but now it needs to be also based on a capacity. You need to be able to approve those, as we just saw, the capacity planning availability to deliver on your roadmaps, right? So now you're going to have multiple levels. You can look at each individual demand, approve it based on capacity, but then now you can monitor that overall portfolio roadmap. Do we have the capacity to deliver on that roadmap for the year, as an example? And can't reiterate enough, it's around organizational change. You need to have a comprehensive change management program. You are going to have some natural team objections. They're going to push back, assuming that, hey, this initiative is going to pass and won't necessarily have to fully implement it. One key thing that's really important is to simplify. So there's a lot of different features, right? You could do planning down at the skill level. But should you do it at that level, that's just going to require that much more maintenance, that many more clicks. So we typically recommend doing it at the group level. Next, right, we need to establish, and this is really a key one as well. If you can't get the commitment of your resource managers to spend the time planning and allocating, we've found that organizations need to have a centralized 1 or 2, 3, depending on the size of your organization, resource management process and support specialists or analysts. And they're working with the resource managers and project managers, making sure all the resource assignments are being completed, that they're being updated and maintained, right? That's one of the biggest things, because we know projects are dynamic. Resource assignments and allocations change over time. And so that's another extreme key to success. We do see multiple common resource management starting points. So if you haven't implemented yet, there's multiple starting points. Say, for example, if you are using the Classic today, the good news is ServiceNow has some good migration scripts and such to kind of set that up for you. There's a few other configuration items, but like I said, it's all about organizational change. But if you're looking at implementing resource management new for the organization, we see this first one here, creating your resource foundation layer. This layer could also be accompanied with these other two starting points. The other one is around resource estimates. We need to get our arms around our estimates. What are our needs? What's the demand for our resources? And you can start there. Other organizations would focus on, hey, we're executing projects. Let's focus on making sure that we're fully allocated and have capacity to execute those. And they start there with projects and then come back to the demand forecast. Or like we mentioned, kind of the end-to-end resource management. So here's an example of what I would consider definitely a phased approach, and starting with the foundation first, and then looking at forecasting and estimates in phase 2, then looking at projects and allocations in phase 3, and then phase 4, getting into portfolio planning, what if scenario planning, etc. So this is, if you're really concerned about organizational change in your culture, this would be the best process to go through. Obviously, we do many where organizations kind of combine these phases together. Here's another example of doing resource management with PPM. So here, starting off with the demand forecasting, you'd still need to have the resource foundation component, which was phase 1 of the previous roadmap. Then getting into the projects and getting into project resources and assignments. Here, then formalizing your allocations, getting into that portfolio planning, capacity planning capabilities there, and then getting into some of your PPM project financial activities. So thought that'd be beneficial to provide you guys with some common roadmaps. This one here being kind of core primary for resource management. We do have multiple variation of roadmaps. So that's something you wanted to follow up with us later. We have others around PPM as well. Well, as we get ready to close here, thanks again for everyone's participation. Thanks again for the great questions. Would love to help you guys on your next steps here for resource management. So number one here, common next steps would be to schedule a discovery workshop, basically just a discovery session, discuss where you're at today with resource management. We can give you recommendations for your implementation there, similar to the question that we received earlier. You could reach out to us. We could schedule a deep dive resource management demonstration. So we could do that as well. Obviously, we could come in and have a conversation, kind of more of that discovery, and then actually provide you with what implementation would look like and give you a proposal that way if you wanted to get some outside expertise to assist with that. And then fourth, you can attend one of our upcoming resource management training sessions or even our resource management implementation roadmap sessions. So those are common next steps, and we'll be providing more information about those.